So today I wanted to talk about the latest buffs, or should I say the latest patch that happened to the game. Obviously, the patch did bring us some bolter buffs and so on. There have been a lot of questions. Some people are happy with the changes. Some people are not happy. The patch that they dropped before they buffed the bolters wasn't really that well received, mostly because when they added lethal, they added it with a mechanic where you had to stick around with your teammates in order to get your armor back. And we are going to talk about that mechanic as well. But the good thing is they made the changes pretty quick, right? Like just a few days later, pretty much the next week, they went ahead and they said, okay, we're going to revert the changes. Here are some buffs for the bolters. That's good news. A lot of companies out there take months and months to make some of the changes that the community wants. Obviously, that kind of hurts the momentum as well. And I'm not saying that the previous patch didn't hurt the momentum. In a way, it did, obviously, because a lot of people just didn't enjoy it, right? But now going forward, some other changes have to be made. So what are those changes that would actually make the game better? You remember the patch 3.0 where they nerfed the range damage and the game just felt really good? I'm talking about the patch before lethal dropped. I feel like that right there was the best state the game has ever been in. The reason for that is simple. For me personally, I think that the long range damage not being able to melt you within a half a second was a great decision. The game just felt better. You could survive and it was still tough. So in my mind, what I was expecting from lethal is, why don't we just keep it like it is, but if you want to make the difficulty harder, throw more enemies at me, right? Like that's essentially what it should be. And if you want to keep that enraged mechanic, sure, keep the enraged mechanic. If you want to keep those crazy amounts of lictors, crazy amounts of reveners, go ahead and do that. I don't mind that. I'm never going to complain about it. I think that those mechanics are cool. I think that those mechanics make the game so much more fun. I really do believe that. That said, they also introduced another mechanic which pretty much wanted you as a team to stick together. The mechanic itself just wasn't tweaked well. I think that if it had been adjusted well enough, I don't think that it was necessarily a bad mechanic, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think that actually was kind of a cool mechanic. If it had been like 30 meters, right, instead of 12, I was actually saying 30 to 50 meters, but 50 could be a bit too much. That would make the whole mechanic a little bit too easy, I guess. But personally, for me, and this is just going to be a personal thing, the mechanic didn't feel bad at all, right? In terms of the idea of it. Once again, they needed to adjust the range, and maybe instead of kind of forcing your players, or should I say not forcing, punishing your players from moving a little bit away from each other, maybe give them a reason to stick together. So instead of like taking away the ability to regen their armor, why not give them the ability to get, let's say, a damage buff because they're standing together? You know what I mean? Something like that. I think that would have been smarter, and I think that would incentivize players more to stick together as a team. Oh yeah, tight formation, Kyle. Thank you, by the way. That was the name of the perk. So they went ahead and they were like, okay, we're going to change it back. Instead of kind of tweaking a little bit, they completely took it out, and they made lethal, in my opinion, a bit too easy right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I feel like the mode is kind of simple now. Sometimes it feels like I'm playing lethal right now and there's just not enough enemies. Like we had a game yesterday and it was just, I ran through half of the mission and I was like, where's the enemies? Like it felt like they weren't there at all. So that was kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. This is a horde shooter, right? That's what we're here for. We want to kill as many aliens as possible and we want to have fun while doing it. And if I go to the highest difficulty, and that difficulty doesn't offer me crazy amounts of enemies, and instead you're trying to implement some mechanics that simply aren't fun or just don't make sense for the lethal difficulty, I don't think that's a good decision. I think that lethal should be one of those difficulties that is extremely hard to beat. Really, really hard, but at the same time it feels very rewarding once you do so. That's what I think lethal should be at the end of the day. Now, another problem that currently the difficulty has, you see those snipers, right? If he does hit you, even if you have full HP and 3 armor pieces, right? The problem is, dude, they all disappear. It's like you never had them. And then out of nowhere, you have 5% health, and that 5 or 10% health will last you longer than the full health bar. Now, I don't know how this works, but it definitely feels like there's some kind of mechanic to it that controls all of these things. Once again, I don't know what that mechanic is. I don't quite understand it and so on, but I'm just saying that's just how it feels to me. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. If you guys do feel like it kind of is the same for you, or maybe I'm just tripping. I don't know. I think that in general, if you're trying to make the difficulty, especially once again in a horde shooter, I really, really hope that at least in the future, it will become one of those things where they kind of go for something else, man. Like just go for the amount of enemies and let us kill a lot more enemies than we're killing right now. And I think that that would make the game feel 10 times better. I wanted to discuss the buffs as well, the ones that happen to the weapons, obviously. Do I think they were enough? We've tested pretty much all of them. 1 or 2 weapons actually benefited from them, and you can actually feel the difference. Most of them really didn't. You can barely tell any difference, right? Like one of the weapons where you could feel the difference was the bolt carbine. All the other ones, like the 5% on the heavy bolter, or even the 10%, like if you take the heavy bolt rifle, was that really enough for it? I don't think so. There's no real reason to use it. Especially, you got to take into account you have weapons like Melta, the heavy plasma incinerator, all these weapons, even this one that I'm using right now, right? The bolt rifle with the grenade launcher. It simply doesn't make sense to run all of those weapons that got buffed because it's not enough. Now, if their goal is to, you know, little by little increase these damages and so that they don't overtune something right away and they have to run it back, right? I understand that. But if their goal is to keep it this way, they will be stuck. They will have an issue where a lot of the times there will be no reason, literally no reason to run some of these weapons, right? Because there's just way better options in the game. Down the line, they will still have to show more love to the bolt weapons for sure, especially to some of them that are pretty much unusable. The buffs were not enough. When you drop a patch that like showcases so many buffs, like pretty much for every bolt weapon, and then only 1 or 2 of them actually feel like they got buffed, that's underwhelming, right? And I understand, once again, they don't want to overtune something, but trust me when I tell you, it's way worse to keep weapons really weak. At the moment, you know, people are playing Meltas and plasma rifles, all the good stuff, all the crazy stuff. That's fine. But eventually, they will have to bring up the bolt weapons. There's just no way they won't have to do that. On top of that, you have melee weapons. Like even if you take a look at the Thunder Hammer or the Fist, you know, they need some love. They really do. Now, let's quickly talk about the enemies as well, because there's a few things that I really want to discuss. When it comes to the enemies in this game, I don't mind the Reveners. I don't mind the Lictors. I think they're a great addition, regardless, right? Like they feel good fighting 3, 5, 7, 8 at the same time. I don't care. I think that lethal, that's how it should be. But bro, what's up with the flying enemies, man? First of all, they're extremely spammy, seriously spammy. Second of all, their shields are crazy. And the worst of the worst, they can hit you through walls. That simply is insane, man. And unless you're running a sniper, I will say that the sniper does counter them hard, right? Like it really does. But the fact that, dude, they can just destroy you through walls literally at any time is kind of nuts. I think that needs to be adjusted on all of them. On the small ones, on the small ball sack, on the big ball sack, all of them. They need to be adjusted. They shouldn't be able to just literally annihilate you through walls. And a lot of the times, like if you're fighting an elite or something, even if you're in execution, you don't see that stuff, man. You don't see it through a wall. The next topic is probably going to be progression. If the game wants to have some kind of longevity to it, it definitely is going to need some kind of progression. Now, that said, there's a lot of weapons to upgrade and everything like that. And you guys know, I absolutely love the game, man. I love the combat. I love pretty much most of the things about the game. I have around 500 hours in the game. I've almost upgraded every single weapon. I have fully leveled every class. I really enjoy the game. But in the long run, it's still gonna need more than just running the same missions over and over again. I think if they do that, that's just gonna help the game have a way brighter future. I think that some kind of dungeon, maybe a raid in the future would be absolutely ridiculous. It would be so much fun. Like imagine a Destiny 2 style raid in this game. And I feel like it would work so well too. And it can be implemented in a really cool way. Something to chase, maybe new weapon upgrades, or even if it's like really cool cosmetics or a new weapon tied to it, something like that. That would be very nice in my opinion. Yeah, those are my thoughts about the update. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Make sure to let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. You guys know I try to answer as many comments as possible. And guys, don't forget to hop into those streams, okay? Both on YouTube and on Twitch. I try to stream as much as possible. We got a lot of cool games coming up. So we're going to be streaming Space Marine 2, Helldivers 2, Monster Hunter Wilds is coming up. And we're also going to be playing tons of Path of Exiles 2. So yeah, I would love to see you guys live on stream. As always, stay positive, stay disciplined, and I'll see you all on the next one.
Let's go! I mean, we literally have the best community of all time.